In the heart of a remote river-bound village, there is a place where time flows in harmony with nature. The village of Ngwena, nestled between rolling hills and a dense forest, is a place where life is lived with purpose, and every leaf, every animal, every whisper of the wind has its place in the grand scheme of things. The air smells of fresh earth and the sweet scent of wildflowers that grow along the edges of the winding river. The village is a world apart, untouched by the rush of the outside world. The days are marked by the melodic sounds of life, children running and playing, women gathering water from the river, and the rhythmic beat of drums echoing from the gathering places of the village. The people of Ngwena are deeply rooted in their traditions. Life here is simple but full of meaning. The villagers are proud of their heritage, and though the village is small and struggles with poverty, the sense of community is unshakable. Kano, a man of towering ambition and immense wealth, grew up in this very village. But years ago, he left Ngwena behind, seeking his fortune in the bustling city of Lusaka. He carved out an empire there, a billionaire by all accounts, wealthy beyond measure with businesses sprawling across continents, luxury at his fingertips. Yet despite all his success, something deep inside him pulled him back to the village of his youth. He had not returned to simply visit. He had come for a purpose. He had come to oversee the construction of a grand modern resort, something that promised to bring prosperity to Ngwena, with jobs and tourists, infrastructure and wealth. The entire village buzzed with excitement at the prospect of this modern development, but for some, including Ayo, his childhood friend, this was not a moment of celebration. Ayo saw it differently. To him, Kano had become like the city people, the kind that only saw the land and its people as means to an end, reducing their history and traditions to a business venture. Kano's return to Nena was met with mixed reactions. Some villagers saw him as a savior, a man who could bring them the prosperity they so desperately needed. Others saw him as a stranger, a man who had lost touch with his roots. The day he arrived was marked by a scorching sun that bathed the village in a golden glow, casting long shadows over the dusty paths. His luxury vehicle kicked up clouds of red dust as it pulled into the village, its arrival causing a stir. The smell of polished leather and fine fabric was almost suffocating to the village's earthy, unrefined air. Kano, tall and imposing, stepped out of his car, dressed in a sharply tailored suit, jet black, gleaming with the shine of affluence. His designer sunglasses reflected the eyes of the villagers, some curious, some skeptical. He was a man out of place, his riches foreign to their way of life. His presence alone carried a weight, one that spoke volumes without a single word. His eyes scanned the village with a mixture of nostalgia and determination. He hadn't forgotten his roots, but his world now was one of corporate meetings, skyscrapers, and private jets. He had done well for himself, but something about the simplicity of Nena, something about the quiet strength of its people gnawed at him, and then his eyes fell upon her. Amidst the bustle of the village market, she was there, sitting quietly, weaving intricate baskets. Her name was Nyambura, and the moment he saw her, something stirred deep inside him. She was unlike anyone he had ever met before. Her beauty was not the kind that demanded attention, but the kind that slowly crept into your heart. Her skin was the color of rich earth, smooth and radiant in the sunlight. Her long, dark hair was tied back in a simple braid, adorned with tiny beads that clinked softly with every movement. Her eyes, however, were what captured him the most. They were deep and mysterious, like they held secrets of the world, secrets she was not ready to share. Nyambura was calm, composed, and seemed to exist in a world apart from the chaotic energy of the village around her. She sat with grace, weaving baskets as if she were crafting not just objects, but entire worlds with her hands. As the days passed, Kano found himself drawn to her more and more. He would visit her stall, buying a basket or two, each time stealing glances at her quiet beauty. Their conversations, at first brief and polite, soon became longer. They spoke of life in the village, of the traditions passed down through generations. Nyambura spoke softly, her voice carrying the weight of wisdom that seemed far beyond her years. Her words were simple, but laden with meaning. It was as though every word she spoke had a depth that demanded attention. Kano, intrigued and captivated, asked her more about her craft. She smiled, her eyes lighting up, and spoke of the different designs of baskets and their meanings, of the stories her grandmother told her about the land. She had an air of serenity about her, a quiet strength that stood in stark contrast to the chaos of the city Kano had come from. As the days turned into weeks, their bond deepened. Kano began to spend more time in the village, abandoning his high-rise meetings for the slow, meditative rhythm of village life. He helped Nyambura with the baskets, learning the delicate craft she had perfected. He spent his evenings walking with her along the river, the soft sound of water against the shore providing a peaceful soundtrack to their growing connection. Their conversations evolved. They spoke of their dreams, their pasts, and their futures. Kano would listen intently as Nyambura shared stories of her childhood, stories of her grandmother, the healer of the village, who had been both revered and feared for her connection to the spiritual world. Nyambura would laugh softly at Kano's jokes, her laughter like music to his ears. But there was always a hint of sadness in her eyes, as though she carried a burden no one could understand. The connection between them was undeniable, yet Nyambura remained distant. There were moments when she would disappear for days, leaving Kano to wonder if he would ever see her again. At first, Kano brushed it off, telling himself that she was simply busy with village duties. But as the weeks passed, he began to grow frustrated. He wanted to know more. He wanted to know why she would disappear, what secrets she was hiding. One evening, as they sat beneath the towering baobab tree by the river, Kano finally confessed his feelings. He looked into her eyes, his voice trembling with sincerity. "Nyambura, I've fallen for you. I want to be with you no matter what." Nyambura's expression was unreadable, her face a mask of calm. After a long pause, she spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Kano, I cannot be with you. There is something ancient, something dark, tied to me. It is not just me you love. It is the curse of my family. Anyone who loves me will suffer. That is the price of loving me." Kano listened, his heart racing, but his mind struggling to grasp what Nyambura was saying. She went on to tell him the story of her ancestors, how her great-grandmother, a powerful healer, had angered the spirits of the land. As punishment, a curse was placed upon her family. Anyone Nyambura loved would eventually be taken away or forced to part with her. It was a curse that had haunted her bloodline for generations, and Nyambura believed it to be true. Kano, ever the skeptic, dismissed it. "I don't believe in curses," he said, his voice steady, though a trace of uncertainty crept in. "I love you, Nyambura. I'm not afraid." But as they kissed, the wind suddenly picked up, the trees rustling as if something unseen was watching them. Nyambura pulled away, her eyes wide with fear. "You don't understand, Kano. You don't know what you're getting into." The air felt heavy, charged with an energy that neither could explain. Despite Nyambura's warning, Kano remained determined. He would not be driven away by fear or superstition. He would fight for her, for their love. As their love deepened, so too did the curse's grip on Kano's life. Strange things began happening to him. He had vivid nightmares of shadowy figures, whispering voices, and hands that reached out from the darkness. He would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, feeling as though something was pressing down on him. His business in Lusaka, once flourishing, began to falter. Investors pulled out, deals fell through, and his empire slowly began to crumble. The riches that had once defined him seemed to slip through his fingers like sand. It was as though the spirits were taking their toll on him, testing his resolve. The villagers, too, began to whisper. "The city man is cursed," they would say. "He has come to take our land, but he has not seen the price he must pay." Kano, desperate, turned to his childhood friend Ayo, seeking advice. "Ayo," he said, his voice weary. "I don't know what's happening to me. My business is failing, my health is declining, and what do I do?" Ayo, ever the pragmatist, was not convinced. "There is no curse, Kano. You've made too many enemies in the city. People are turning on you, that's all. But if you truly believe in this nonsense, then go to her. Let her tell you what to do." Kano sought out Nyambura once more, his heart heavy with the weight of his failures. She too had noticed the change in him. His once confident stride now seemed uncertain, his eyes haunted by an unseen presence. She had warned him, but still, he had refused to listen. "I need you, Nyambura," Kano confessed, his voice breaking. "But I don't know how much more I can take." Nyambura, deeply conflicted, finally agreed to help him. There was only one way to break the curse: the ritual. A ceremony that would cleanse Kano of the spirits that haunted him, but it came at a cost. Kano would have to give up his wealth, his power, everything he had built. He would have to sacrifice his life as he knew it. In the dead of night, Nyambura led Kano to the sacred river where the ritual would take place. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the sounds of distant drums echoed in the background. Mzee Ahmadi, the village elder, stood at the water's edge, chanting softly. His voice was low, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. He called upon the spirits of the river, asking them to accept Kano's sacrifice. The ritual was intense, a clash of the physical and spiritual worlds. As the sacred herbs were burned, Kano felt the weight of his past life lifting from him, his wealth, his possessions, all slipping away like the ashes into the river. With each breath he took, his ties to the world he had known were severed. And then, in the silence that followed, Kano felt free. The next morning, Kano woke up, not as the billionaire he had been, but as a man reborn. His wealth was gone, but he was no longer haunted by the shadows that had pursued him. He felt lighter, more connected to the earth beneath him. Nyambura was there beside him, smiling gently. She took his hand in hers, and for the first time there was no fear in her eyes. They had done it. The curse was lifted. Together, they returned to the village, not as a city man and a village girl, but as two souls intertwined by love and sacrifice. The village welcomed Kano back, but this time, it was not for his money or his power. It was for the man he had become, a man who had learned the true value of love, of family, and of community. And so in Nena, amidst the winding river and the tall trees, Kano and Nyambura found peace. Their love, once tested by fate, was now unbreakable. And the village, once on the brink of change, was transformed, not by wealth but by the strength of their shared journey.